The spotlight hit Danielle Carter like a freight train, and she realized she'd been set up. Have you ever walked into what you thought was your dream opportunity, only to discover it was actually your worst nightmare? Drop a mic in the comments if you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. 24 hours earlier, Danielle was in her tiny Atlanta apartment, practicing harmonies for church choir when her phone buzzed. The caller ID made her heart skip. Nashville Music Group. The voice on the other end was professional, urgent. We need a backup vocalist for Cody Hart's Charlotte show tomorrow night. One of our singers got sick. Are you available? Danielle's hands trembled as she gripped the phone. Cody Hart, the country pop prince with platinum albums and sold-out arenas. This was it, her big break. I'll be there, she whispered, barely believing the words leaving her lips. The next morning, she drove 4 hours to Charlotte, North Carolina, her beat-up Honda loaded with her best dresses and a heart full of hope. The venue was massive, Bank of America Stadium, where 70,000 fans would scream Cody's name. She'd sung in churches, local bars, even a few small venues, but nothing like this. When she arrived at the backstage area, something felt off. The other backup singers looked at her strangely. Whispered conversations stopped when she walked by. But Danielle pushed the feeling down. She was here. She'd made it. Marcus Williams, Cody's sound engineer, was the first person to actually speak to her. Tall, dark-skinned, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he extended his hand. You must be the new backup. I'm Marcus. Danielle, she replied, grateful for a friendly face. First time working with Cody's team? She nodded. Marcus's expression shifted slightly. Just be careful out there, okay? Sometimes these guys play games. Before she could ask what he meant, Cody Hart himself strutted over. Bleached blonde hair, perfect smile, cowboy boots that probably cost more than her car. Up close, his blue eyes were ice cold. Well, he drawled, looking her up and down. You're the replacement. The way he said replacement made her skin crawl. I'm done yet. Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Hart. Cody's smile didn't reach his eyes. Oh, you're going to be very memorable tonight. Behind him, his bandmates snickered. Danielle felt that familiar knot in her stomach. The same feeling she got when she was the only black girl in her college music classes. What was she walking into? 3 hours before showtime, Danielle discovered the first red flag. Have you ever signed something without reading the fine print? Tell us about a time you trusted someone too quickly. We've all been there. The contract was shoved in front of her by Cody's manager, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit. Standard backup vocalist agreement, she said dismissively. Just sign here and here. Danielle skimmed the pages. Most of it looked normal, payment terms, confidentiality clauses, the usual legal language. But exhaustion from the drive and nerves about the performance made her rush through it. Is there a problem? The manager asked, tapping her manicured nails on the table. No, ma'am. Danielle signed both copies, her cursive signature sealing her fate. What she didn't see, buried in paragraph 7 of page 4, was a clause that would change everything. It granted Cody Hart Productions the right to modify performance arrangements at their discretion and required her to accept any solo performance opportunities as directed by the primary artist. Marcus found her in the catering area 20 minutes later, picking at a sandwich she was too nervous to eat. How you holding up? He asked, sitting across from her. Try not to throw up, she admitted with a weak laugh. Marcus studied her face. Danielle, can I ask you something? Did they tell you anything specific about tonight's show? Just that I'd be singing backup on 3 songs. What? His jaw tightened. I've been working with this crew for 2 years. They don't usually bring in last-minute replacements, especially not for a stadium show. What are you saying? Before Marcus could answer, one of Cody's bandmates, a lanky guy with a goatee, approached their table. Hey Danielle, ready for your big debut? The way he emphasized big made her stomach flip. I'm ready, she said, trying to project confidence. Good, because Cody's got something special planned for you tonight. Something the crowd will never forget. After he walked away, Marcus leaned forward. That's Jake Peterson, Cody's lead guitarist. He's also the guy who came up with the idea for tonight. What idea? Marcus glanced around, then lowered his voice. I overheard them talking yesterday. Cody lost some bet with the band, and now he owes them a show. Something about proving country music fans aren't ready for certain types of voices. Danielle's blood went cold. Certain types of voices? I might be wrong, Marcus said quickly, but if I were you, I'd be extra careful tonight. And maybe we should exchange numbers, just in case. She programmed his contact into her phone with shaking fingers. 2 hours until showtime. What had she gotten herself into? The moment Danielle stepped onto that stage, she knew she'd been played. Have you ever felt the weight of thousands of eyes judging you before you even open your mouth? Comment stage fright if you know that feeling. The Charlotte crowd was exactly what she expected. Mostly white, mostly middle-aged, mostly there to hear Cody Hart sing about trucks and heartbreak. But when the spotlight hit her during the second song, something was wrong. The other backup singers had quietly moved to the far side of the stage, leaving her alone in the center. Cody was grinning that same cold smile from earlier, and the band was playing a melody she didn't recognize. Ladies and gentlemen, Cody's voice boomed through the arena. Tonight we've got a special treat for you. Our backup singer here is going to perform a solo for us. Danielle's heart stopped. This wasn't part of the plan. The crowd's reaction was immediate and uncomfortable. Scattered applause mixed with confused murmurs. She could feel 70,000 pairs of eyes evaluating her, questioning her presence on their country music stage. Cody leaned over to her mic, his voice carrying across the stadium. Go ahead, honey. Show them what you've got. The word honey dripped with condescension. Behind the main speakers, she could hear Jake Peterson's guitar starting a slow, bluesy progression. Nothing like the upbeat country songs they'd rehearsed. This was the trap. They wanted her to fail publicly to prove some racist point about who belonged on country stages and who didn't. In the sound booth, Marcus was frantically adjusting levels, trying to give her the best mix possible. Their eyes met across the stadium, and he gave her a small nod. You've got this. But did she? Danielle's mind raced. She could walk off stage right now. Save herself the humiliation. Let them have their joke. Or she could sing, really sing, the way she sang in church when the Holy Spirit moved through her. The way she sang alone in her car when her favorite song came on. The way she sang when no one was watching, when no one was judging, when music was just pure emotion flowing through her voice. The guitar continued its lonely melody, waiting for her to join in. The crowd grew restless. Cody's smile widened, thinking he'd broken her. That's when something shifted inside Danielle Carter. She'd been singing since she was 5 years old. Church choirs, school performances, local talent shows. Music was in her blood. And these people, these men who thought they could humiliate her, had just given her the biggest stage of her life. She stepped closer to the microphone. This song, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, is for everyone who's ever been underestimated. The crowd quieted. Marcus boosted her mic level. Cody's smile faltered just slightly, and Danielle Carter opened her mouth and let her soul pour out. What happened next would change everything. The first note that came out of Danielle's mouth silenced 70,000 people. Have you ever heard a voice so powerful it gave you chills? Hit that like button if you believe music can change hearts. It started low, a gentle hum that seemed to vibrate through the stadium's steel beams. Then it grew, climbing higher, carrying pain and hope and decades of struggle in every breath. She didn't sing a country song. She didn't sing pop. She sang something deeper, a freedom song her grandmother had taught her, mixed with gospel runs that made the arena feel like a cathedral. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. The ancient spiritual transformed in her voice, becoming something both timeless and urgent. Her runs were flawless, her tone rich and textured like aged whiskey. Every word carried weight. Every note painted pictures of resilience. In the VIP section, industry executives who'd been scrolling through their phones stopped mid-swipe. In the cheap seats, construction workers who'd never listened to gospel music found themselves leaning forward. Children who'd come to hear pop country hits sat mesmerized. Cody Hart, for the first time in his career, looked genuinely shaken. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to stumble, to embarrass herself, to prove his point about who belonged on country stages. Instead, she was commanding the stage like she owned it. Marcus watched from the sound booth, his hands moving instinctively to enhance her performance. He'd worked with dozens of singers, but never anyone like this. Her voice was cutting through the arena's acoustics like a sword through silk. The song built to a crescendo that made the stadium's lights seem to flicker. Danielle's voice soared above the instrumentation, hitting notes that shouldn't have been possible without studio enhancement. But this was raw, live, unfiltered talent. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone, so far from home. When she reached the bridge, something magical happened. The crowd, this mostly white, mostly conservative Charlotte audience, began to sway. Not the polite golf claps they've been giving the opening acts, but genuine, involuntary movement. A woman in the front row wiped tears from her eyes. A man in a Confederate flag t-shirt lowered his beer, transfixed. Teenagers who'd been texting their friends suddenly had their phones pointed at the stage, recording. And then came the moment that would break the internet. Danielle stepped away from the microphone stand, walking to the edge of the stage. Her voice, now completely raw and unfiltered, carried across the stadium without amplification. But I believe I can make it home. The note she held on "believe" seemed to last forever. It was technically perfect, but emotionally devastating. It was the sound of every black woman who'd ever been told she didn't belong, who'd ever been underestimated, who'd ever been forced to prove her worth on someone else's terms. The crowd erupted. Not polite applause, not confused murmurs. A standing ovation that shook the stadium's foundations. But in the wings, Cody's team was already planning damage control. The cameras had caught everything. This wasn't supposed to be her moment. It was supposed to be his. What they did next would make headlines for months. Before Danielle could even process what had just happened, Cody's team was moving to erase it. Have you ever witnessed something incredible, only to have someone try to convince you it didn't happen? Share your thoughts below. The applause was still thundering when Jake Peterson rushed to Danielle's side. His fake smile stretched wide for the cameras. "Wasn't that beautiful, folks?" he shouted in his headset mic. What an amazing planned collaboration between our star Cody Hart and our featured guest. The lie came so smoothly, so quickly, that Danielle barely had time to process it. Cody jogged over, his PR training kicking in. He threw his arm around her shoulders, the same shoulders that had been shaking with terror 5 minutes earlier, and waved to the crowd. "Let's hear it for Danielle Carter, everyone." What a voice. The crowd roared again, but now it felt different. Tainted. They were applauding what they thought was a planned duet, not the raw moment of defiance it had actually been. Backstage, the real work began. Cody's manager was already on her phone with the venue's media team. "I need all footage from that performance lockdown. No unauthorized recordings leave this building." The videographer who'd been documenting the concert for Cody's social media looked confused. "But ma'am, that was incredible. The audience loved it. This could go viral in all the best ways." "Did I stutter?" she snapped. "Lock it down." Meanwhile, Marcus was watching from the sound booth as security began approaching fans who'd been recording with their phones. Not aggressively, but firmly. "Sorry folks, venue policy. No unauthorized recording during special performances." Most people complied, deleting their videos with disappointed shrugs. But Marcus noticed a few young fans near the back who'd already slipped their phones into their pockets. Smart kids. Danielle found herself whisked away to a private trailer before she could even acknowledge the crowd's continued applause. The rush of adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a crushing realization. They were stealing her moment. "That was incredible," gushed the same manager who'd rushed her through the contract. Cody's vision really paid off. The audience ate up that planned surprise. Planned surprise? Danielle's voice was hoarse from singing, but sharp with anger. "Oh yes, didn't anyone tell you?" This was all part of Cody's artistic vision. He wanted to showcase different musical styles, bring some diversity to the performance. The word diversity felt like a slap. "You blindsided me up there," Danielle said quietly. Blindsided? Honey, you just got the performance of a lifetime in front of 70,000 people. You should be thanking us. That's when Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face grim. Danielle, we need to talk. Now. Something in his tone made her stomach drop. The cover-up was bigger than she'd imagined. And somewhere in that stadium, a young fan named Tyler was uploading a shaky phone video to TikTok about to change everything. Like and subscribe if you're ready to see what happens when the truth refuses to stay buried. What do you think Danielle should do next? Tell us in the comments. One leaked video changed everything, but who leaked it would shock you even more. Have you ever gone viral for something unexpected? Comment fire if you've ever had your life turned upside down by social media. Tyler Martinez was 17 years old and broke. His phone was cracked, his data plan was cheap, and uploading anything to TikTok usually took forever. But something about that performance made him keep recording, even when security started telling people to put their phones away. He waited until he got home to Charlotte to upload the shaky footage. The video quality was terrible. You could barely make out faces on the stage. But the audio was crystal clear. Danielle's voice cut through the phone's tiny speakers like lightning through storm clouds. Tyler titled the video, "This backup singer just destroyed a country concert #, country music #, powerful voice #, Charlotte Show." He posted it at 11:47 p.m. and went to bed. By morning, the video had 50,000 views. By noon, it was at 500,000. By 3 p.m., it had crashed Tyler's phone with notifications. But Tyler wasn't the only one who'd captured the moment. Marcus Williams, watching from a sound booth, had made a decision that would change his career forever. As head sound engineer, Marcus had access to the direct audio feed from every microphone on stage. While Cody's team was busy collecting phones and locking down unauthorized recordings, Marcus was quietly saving the crystal-clear, professional-quality audio from Danielle's performance. He worked in Nashville for 15 years. He'd seen talented artists get chewed up and spit out by the industry machine. But he'd never seen anything like what happened to Danielle that night. The official story was already spreading. Cody Hart showcases diversity with planned gospel collaboration. Marcus knew better. At 2 a.m., 3 hours after Tyler's video started gaining traction, Marcus made his move. He synced his professional audio with Tyler's shaky video footage, creating a version that captured both the visual of Danielle's raw emotion and the perfect clarity of her voice. He uploaded it to YouTube with a simple title, "The Truth About Charlotte, Danielle Carter's Real Performance." The description was even simpler. She wasn't supposed to sing alone. She wasn't supposed to sing gospel. She was supposed to fail. She didn't. Marcus's video exploded like a bomb going off. Within 6 hours, #Danielle Carter was trending nationwide. Within 12 hours, it was trending globally. The video racked up 2 million views in its first day. But the real magic happened in the comments. This gave me chills. She turned a setup into a sermon. Country music needs more voices like this. I was there. The crowd was not expecting this. She earned every second of that standing ovation. Black Twitter embraced the video immediately. Gospel singers shared it. Country artists, the ones brave enough, quietly liked and shared it. But the most powerful moment came when legendary gospel singer Mahalia Jackson's great niece, now a successful producer, shared the video with a simple caption. "This is what happens when you try to dim a light that was meant to shine." By day 3, the video had 10 million views across all platforms. Major news outlets were calling it the performance that changed country music. And in Nashville, Cody Hart's team was in full panic mode. The cover-up had failed. The truth was out. And now they had to decide, admit their mistake or double down on the lie. They chose war. The lawsuit came 48 hours after the video went viral. Have you ever had someone try to silence you when you were telling the truth? Drop a balance scale if you've ever had to fight for what's right. Danielle was in her Atlanta apartment, still trying to process her sudden internet fame when the knock came. A man in an expensive suit handed her a thick envelope. "Danielle Carter, you've been served." Her hand shook as she read the papers. Heart Entertainment versus Danielle Carter. The charges were devastating. Breach of contract, unauthorized use of copyrighted material, defamation, and something called tortious interference with business relations. They were suing her for $3 million. The contract clause she barely read was now being used as a weapon. According to their lawyers, her performance had violated the professional conduct section of her agreement. They claimed she deliberately sabotaged the planned show by performing unauthorized material. But the real kicker was buried in page 7 of the lawsuit. They were demanding ownership of her performance. According to their legal team, anything she sang while under contract belonged to Heart Entertainment. They wanted to own her voice. Danielle's phone rang. It was Marcus. They served you too? She asked, not even saying hello. Yeah, same charges, plus something about theft of proprietary recordings. His voice was tight with anger. They're saying I stole their audio when I mixed your performance. Marcus, I can't afford lawyers. I can barely afford rent. I know, but Danielle, you need to see something. Check your email. She opened her laptop. Her inbox was flooded with messages, but one stood out. From Tyrone Washington, Nashville music producer. Ms. Carter, I've been in this business for 30 years. I've seen a lot of talent, but I've never seen anything like what you did in Charlotte. If you're interested in telling your side of this story, I'd like to help. No strings attached. Just truth. Attached was a link to his credentials. Tyrone Washington had produced albums for some of the biggest names in country and gospel music. He'd won Grammys. He'd launched careers, and he was offering to help her fight back. He reached out to me too, Marcus said when she called him back. Wants to meet with both of us tomorrow in Nashville. I don't know, Marcus. What if this is another setup? What if it's not? What if this is your chance to fight back? That night, Danielle couldn't sleep. She kept reading the comments on the videos. Millions of strangers supporting her, sharing their own stories of being underestimated, of being set up to fail. But she also saw the other comments. The ones calling her uppity. The ones saying she should be grateful for the opportunity. The ones using words she didn't want to think about. Cody Hart's team was pushing back hard. They'd released a statement calling her ungrateful and unprofessional. They were painting her as someone who'd bitten the hand that fed her. The battle lines were drawn, but Danielle Carter was about to discover she wasn't fighting alone. The Nashville meeting changed everything. Have you ever met someone who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself? Tell us about that person in the comments. Tyrone Washington's studio was nothing like the flashy Heart Entertainment offices. It was smaller, warmer, filled with gold records and photos of legendary artists. The walls told stories of real music, real talent, real success. Coffee, Tyrone offered, his deep voice carrying the wisdom of decades in the music business. Danielle and Marcus sat across from him, both nervous. At 62, Tyrone had gray hair and kind eyes that had seen everything the industry could throw an artist. I'm going to be straight with you, he said, settling into his chair. What they did to you is wrong, but suing them won't be enough. You need to control your own narrative. What do you mean? Danielle asked. They're painting you as the villain. Ungrateful, unprofessional. The only way to fight that is to tell your story your way in your voice. He pulled out a folder. I've been doing research. This isn't the first time Heart Entertainment has pulled something like this. 3 years ago, they did something similar to a young Latina singer in Texas. She settled quietly and disappeared from music entirely. Danielle's stomach dropped. But you're not disappearing, Tyrone continued. You're going to record an album. Tell your story. Show the world who you really are. An album? Danielle's voice was barely a whisper. I can't afford to record an album. You won't have to. I'm offering to produce it for free. My studio, my equipment, my connections. All you have to do is sing your truth. Marcus leaned forward. What's the catch? Tyrone smiled. No catch. I'm old. I'm successful. And I'm tired of watching talented people get crushed by corporate bullies. Call it my way of giving back. But what about the lawsuit? Danielle asked. We'll fight it. I've got lawyers who specialize in artist rights. But more importantly, we'll make them irrelevant. When your album comes out, when people hear your real story, their lives won't matter anymore. He pulled out a piece of paper. I've been working on this since I saw your performance. It's not a contract, it's a partnership agreement. You keep all rights to your music. You keep all profits. I just want to help you tell your story." Danielle read the document, her hands trembling. Everything was in her favor. Too good to be true. "Why?" she asked simply. Tyrone's expression grew serious. "Because 30 years ago, I was a young black producer trying to break into country music. People told me I didn't belong. Someone gave me a chance. Now it's my turn to give someone else a chance. What do you think, Marcus?" Danielle asked. "I think it's time to fight back." The discovery that would destroy Heart Entertainment came from the most unlikely source. Have you ever found evidence of something terrible hidden in plain sight? Share your story below. It was Marcus who found it 3 weeks into working with Tyrone. He'd been going through his old files, looking for any documentation from the Charlotte show, when he stumbled across something that made his blood run cold. "Danielle, you need to see this." Now, she rushed to his apartment, where he had papers spread across his kitchen table. Legal documents, contracts, email printouts. "I was cleaning out my work files when I found this," he said, pointing to a folder marked Special Event Contract, Charlotte. Inside was a different version of the contract Danielle had signed. Same format, same legal language, but with one crucial difference: an entire section that had been removed from her copy. Section 12B. Marcus read aloud. "Artist acknowledges that participation in this event is conditional upon their willingness to perform in a manner that may be considered unconventional for the genre, including, but not limited to, solo performance without preparation, performance of non-country musical styles, and performance under conditions designed to test adaptability and professionalism." Danielle's hands shook as she read the words. They knew. They planned this whole thing. "It gets worse," Marcus continued. "Look at this email." He printed out a conversation between Cody Hart and his manager, dated 2 days before the Charlotte show. "Jake's bet is getting expensive. We need to make this worth it. The backup singer situation is perfect. We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Prove Jake's point about certain audiences and create some viral content. Win-win. What if she's actually good? Then we spin it as planned collaboration. Either way, we control the narrative." But the most damning evidence was a recording Marcus had accidentally captured during sound check. His equipment had been running longer than usual, and it had picked up a conversation between Cody and his band. "I can't believe we're actually doing this." Jake's voice was clear on the recording. "Relax," Cody replied. "She bombs, we get our laughs, and prove country music isn't ready for diversity. She succeeds, we take credit for being progressive. Either way, we win. What about her? What if she gets hurt by this? That's her problem. She signed a contract." The recording was 18 minutes long. 18 minutes of them planning her humiliation, discussing how her people would react, making jokes about putting her in her place. Danielle listened to the entire thing, tears streaming down her face. Not from sadness, but from rage. "They were never going to let me succeed on my own terms," she whispered. "No," Marcus agreed. "They wanted to own your success or your failure. They just didn't expect you to be so incredible that they couldn't control the story." Tyrone arrived 20 minutes later. He'd been expecting a recording session, but one look at their faces told him something had changed. "What did you find?" he asked. They showed him everything. The contracts, the emails, the recording. He listened to the entire audio file, his expression growing darker with each passing minute. "This is it," he said finally. "This isn't just about one bad performance setup. This is systematic discrimination. This is a pattern of behavior. What do we do?" Danielle asked. "We don't just fight their lawsuit," Tyrone said, his voice deadly serious. "We destroy them, legally, professionally, and publicly. Now, first, we take this to the press. Every major news outlet, every music journalist, every civil rights organization. Then we countersue, not for 3 million, but for 30 million. And then we make the album that ends their career and starts yours." The press conference that changed country music forever happened on a Tuesday morning in Nashville. Have you ever watched someone's world crumble in real time? Hit that subscribe button if you're ready to see justice served. The room was packed. Every major music journalist, entertainment reporter, and civil rights advocate in the South had shown up. CNN had sent a crew. So had NBC, CBS, and Fox News. Danielle sat at the center of the long table, flanked by Tyrone and a team of lawyers that made Heart Entertainment's legal team look like amateurs. Marcus was in the front row, his audio equipment ready to capture every word. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tyrone began, his voice carrying the authority of 3 decades in the music industry. "We're here today to expose a pattern of systematic racism and exploitation in country music." The first bomb dropped when they played the audio recording of Cody and his band planning her humiliation. The room went dead silent as Cody's voice filled the speakers, casually discussing how to put her in her place. Gasps echoed through the room when they revealed the 2 different contracts, the one Danielle signed and the one that revealed the true nature of their plan. But the kill shot came when Tyrone's lawyers presented evidence of Heart Entertainment's other victims. The Latina singer from Texas, a young Native American guitarist from Oklahoma, a black country songwriter from Alabama. All of them had been given opportunities that turned into public humiliations. All of them have been silenced by lawsuits and NDAs. "This isn't about one bad night," Danielle said, her voice steady despite the cameras pointed at her. "This is about an industry that thinks it can use people who look like me as entertainment, then throw us away when we become inconvenient." The questions came fast and furious. "Ms. Carter, how do you respond to Heart Entertainment's claims that you breached your contract? I performed exactly as they planned. They just didn't expect me to be good enough to flip their script. What do you want to see happen to Cody Hart? I want him to face consequences for his actions. And I want to make sure this never happens to another artist. Are you planning to continue in country music? I'm planning to continue making music, period. Whether country music is ready for me or not." The press conference lasted 2 hours. By the time it ended, #Justice for Danielle was trending worldwide. The audio recording was playing on every major news network. Cody Hart's carefully crafted image was crumbling in real time. But the best part came that evening. Country music's biggest stars, the ones who'd stayed silent during the initial controversy, finally found their voices. Carrie Underwood posted a statement supporting Danielle. Keith Urban called for industry-wide reforms. Even Dolly Parton weighed in, saying talent has no color and neither should opportunity. The corporate sponsors started pulling out of Cody's tour within hours. Radio stations began quietly removing his songs from rotation. His record label called an emergency meeting. By midnight, Heart Entertainment's stock price had dropped 15%. But for Danielle, the real victory came when her phone buzzed with a text from Tyler, the teenager who'd first uploaded her video. "Ms. Carter, I'm a senior in high school and I want to study music business in college. After seeing what you did today, I know I want to fight for artists like you. Thank you for showing me what courage looks like." The war was just beginning. But for the first time since that night in Charlotte, Danielle felt like she might actually win. What do you think will happen next? Will Cody Hart face real consequences? Drop your predictions in the comments and smash that like button if you're here for this journey. The moment Danielle decided to go public with everything, she knew there was no going back. Have you ever had to choose between staying safe or doing what's right? Comment courage if you've ever had to make that choice. The album was ready. 3 months of late nights in Tyrone's studio had produced something extraordinary. Not just music, but a statement. 12 tracks that told her story from childhood church choirs to that night in Charlotte to this moment of reckoning. But the real bombshell came when Tyrone's lawyers discovered something that changed everything. "Danielle, you need to sit down for this," Tyrone said, walking into the studio with a folder that looked like it could end careers. "What now?" she asked, exhaustion clear in her voice. "We found the others. All of them." The folder contained contracts, emails, and testimonies from 17 different artists over the past 8 years. Heart Entertainment had been running the same scheme across the country, targeting young artists of color, setting them up to fail, then either burying them in legal threats or taking credit for their success. 17 people, Marcus whispered, reading over her shoulder. 17 people whose careers were destroyed or stolen. Tyrone corrected. And that's just what we can prove. The evidence was overwhelming. A pattern so clear, so systematic, that it couldn't be ignored. Heart Entertainment wasn't just racist. They were running a sophisticated operation designed to exploit and silence minority artists. We're not just suing them anymore, Tyrone continued. We're going federal. Civil rights violations, racketeering, conspiracy. The FBI is getting involved. Danielle's hands shook as she processed the magnitude of what they'd uncovered. All those people, they went through what I went through. Worse, some of them were teenagers. Some never recovered from the trauma. That's when she made the decision that would define her career. I want to testify. Danielle, you don't have to. We have enough evidence to. No, her voice was firm, final. Those 17 people deserve to have their stories told. And there are probably more who haven't come forward yet. The congressional hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. The House Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties had fast-tracked the investigation after the evidence became public. Danielle spent those 2 weeks preparing, not just her testimony, but her heart. She knew that walking into that hearing room would mean facing down not just Heart Entertainment, but an entire industry that had profited from keeping people like her silent. The night before the hearing, Marcus found her in the studio, sitting at the piano, playing the song she'd written about that night in Charlotte. You ready for tomorrow? He asked. No, she admitted, but I'm going anyway. Why? She looked up at him, her eyes bright with determination. Because that 17-year-old girl who uploaded my video to TikTok deserves to see what happens when you don't back down. Because those 17 artists deserve justice. And because maybe, just maybe, if I speak up loud enough, no one else will have to go through what we went through. Tomorrow, she would face Congress. Tomorrow, she would tell the world exactly what Heart Entertainment had done. Tomorrow, she would make history. The hearing room was packed with more people than Danielle had ever performed for. Have you ever been in a room where you knew your words could change everything? Drop a mic if you believe in the power of speaking truth. C-SPAN cameras captured every moment as Danielle walked to the witness table. Behind her sat the families of the 17 artists Heart Entertainment had targeted. In the gallery, music industry executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. At the defendant's table, Cody Hart looked nothing like the confident country star who'd strutted around Charlotte. His blonde hair was perfectly styled, his suit expensive, but his eyes darted nervously around the room. Ms. Carter, the committee chairwoman, began. Thank you for your courage in coming forward. Please tell us, in your own words, what happened on the night of March 15th. Danielle leaned into the microphone, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. I was set up to fail, but more than that, I was used as entertainment for people who wanted to watch someone who looked like me be humiliated on national television. She told the story methodically, without emotion, letting the facts speak for themselves. The fake emergency call, the hidden contract clause, the planned humiliation. But I didn't fail, she continued. And that's when things got really ugly. The committee played the audio recording of Cody and his band planning her humiliation. Even in that formal setting, the casual cruelty of their words was shocking. Mr. Hart, the chairwoman turned to Cody. Do you recognize these voices? Cody's lawyer whispered in his ear before he answered. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. A ripple of murmurs went through the gallery. Ms. Carter, what impact has this experience had on your career? It nearly ended it before it began. But more importantly, it showed me that I wasn't alone. 17 other artists went through similar experiences with Heart Entertainment. Some of them never recovered. The committee called witness after witness. The Latina singer from Texas, now working as a teacher because she'd been too traumatized to perform. The Native American guitarist who'd been blacklisted from Nashville venues. The Black songwriter who'd had his compositions stolen and rewritten. Each story was worse than the last. Each testimony revealed new layers of systematic exploitation. But the most powerful moment came when the committee played a video message from Tyler Martinez, the teenager who'd first uploaded Danielle's performance. I'm 17 years old, and I want to work in a music industry someday. Tyler's voice filled the hearing room. Watching Ms. Carter fight back taught me that the industry doesn't have to stay broken. People like her are fixing it. The hearing lasted 6 hours. By the end, Heart Entertainment stock had crashed. 3 major investors had pulled out. Radio stations were removing Cody's music from their playlists. But the real victory came in the committee's final statement. Based on the evidence presented today, this committee will recommend federal legislation to protect artists from discriminatory practices, establish mandatory reporting of artist complaints, and create an independent oversight board for the music industry. The Heart Entertainment Accountability Act will become law 6 months later. As Danielle left the hearing room, reporters swarmed her with questions, but she only answered one. "What's next for you, Ms. Carter?" "I'm going to keep singing, but now I'm going to make sure other people get to sing too." The revolution had begun. The dominoes fell faster than anyone expected. Have you ever watched a corrupt system crumble in real time? Hit that like button if you believe justice always finds a way. Within a week of the congressional hearing, Heart Entertainment was facing a class action lawsuit from 43 artists. The original 17 had been joined by dozens more who'd found the courage to speak up. Cody Hart's tour was canceled. His record deal was terminated. His endorsement deals disappeared overnight. But the real earthquake came when other major entertainment companies started getting investigated. The FBI had opened files on 3 other labels, 2 major venues, and a handful of prominent managers. "It's like pulling a thread," Marcus explained to Danielle as they watched the news coverage. "Once you expose one corrupt system, people start looking at all the others." The music industry was having its reckoning. Major labels were quietly settling with artists who'd been exploited. Venue owners were implementing new policies. Radio stations were diversifying their playlists. But the most satisfying moment came when Danielle's phone rang with a call from an unknown Nashville number. "Ms. Carter, this is Rebecca Watson from Country Music Television. We'd like to offer you a primetime special to tell your story and perform your new album." The same network that had ignored her viral moment was now begging for her attention. "I'll have to think about it," she said, enjoying the desperation in the executive's voice. "We're prepared to offer you complete creative control. You can say whatever you want, perform whatever you want. And we'll donate $1 million to your new foundation." The Danielle Carter Foundation for Artist Rights had been Tyrone's idea. A legal defense fund for artists facing discrimination, combined with educational programs for young musicians. "I'll get back to you," she said, hanging up. Marcus was grinning. "You're going to say yes, aren't you?" "Eventually. But first, I want to see how much they're willing to give up." The offers kept coming. Netflix wanted to do a documentary. Publishers wanted to bid on her memoir. Record labels were promising her complete artistic freedom. But the most meaningful call came from an unexpected source. "Ms. Carter, this is Dolly Parton." Danielle nearly dropped her phone. "I just wanted to call and tell you how proud I am of what you've done. You've changed this industry for the better, and that takes more courage than most people have." "Thank you, Ms. Parton. That means everything coming from you. I'm calling because I want to invite you to perform at the Grand Ole Opry. It's about time that stage for a voice like yours." The Grand Ole Opry, the most sacred venue in country music, the place every country artist dreams of performing. "I'd be honored," Danielle whispered. "Good. Because I think it's time country music remembered what it sounds like when someone sings from their soul." That night, Danielle called her grandmother in Atlanta, the woman who'd first taught her to sing in church. "Grandma, I'm going to sing at the Grand Ole Opry." "I know, baby. I knew you would from the first time I heard you sing. You've got something special, and now the whole world knows it too." The little girl who'd hummed hymns in church was about to take the biggest stage in country music. The Grand Ole Opry had never seen anything like it. Have you ever witnessed a moment that changed history? Comment iconic if you're ready to see a legend being born. The famous circle of wood at center stage, cut from the original Ryman Auditorium, had hosted every country music legend for nearly a century. But it had never hosted someone like Danielle Carter. The audience was different too. Instead of the usual country music crowd, the Opry was packed with people from every background, every age, every walk of life. Young black girls sat next to elderly white couples. Gospel singers filled the same rows as rock stars. Tyler Martinez, the teenager who'd started it all, was in the front row with his family. Marcus was running sound, making sure every note would be perfect. Tyrone sat in the producer's section, tears already forming in his eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed through the historic venue. Please welcome to the Grand Ole Opry stage, for the first time, Ms. Danielle Carter. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes before she even opened her mouth. Danielle walked to the microphone, her simple black dress elegant under the lights. She looked out at the crowd, then down at the famous circle of wood beneath her feet. 8 months ago, she began, her voice carrying perfectly through the sacred space. I was a backup singer who thought her big break was singing behind someone else. Tonight, I'm standing where legends stood, ready to sing my own truth. She started with the song she'd written about that night in Charlotte. But this wasn't the raw, emotional performance from the stadium. This was refined, powerful, deliberate. Every note was placed perfectly, every word delivered with the wisdom of someone who'd fought for the right to be heard. The crowd was completely silent, hanging on every word. Then came the moment that would be replayed on every music show for years to come. This next song, she said, is for everyone who's ever been told they don't belong. Everyone who's ever been underestimated. Everyone who's ever had to fight for their place at the table. She launched into a gospel country fusion that had never been heard at the Opry before. Her voice soared through the venue, hitting notes that seemed impossible, carrying emotions that made grown men cry. But the real magic happened when she invited the 17 artists who'd been Heart Entertainment's victims to join her on stage. One by one, they walked into the circle, adding their voices to hers. The Latina singer from Texas, the Native American guitarist from Oklahoma, the Black songwriter from Alabama, all of them standing together, singing together, reclaiming their voices together. The Grand Ole Opry erupted in applause that lasted 10 minutes. Country music had been forever changed, and Danielle Carter had become exactly what she was always meant to be. A voice that couldn't be silenced, a force that couldn't be stopped, a legend that would inspire generations. The little girl from Atlanta had conquered the world. 5 years later, the music industry was unrecognizable. Have you ever been part of something that changed the world? Tell us about a moment when you made a difference. The Danielle Carter Foundation had helped over 200 artists fight discrimination and exploitation. The Heart Entertainment Accountability Act had prevented dozens of similar schemes. Country music radio was more diverse than it had ever been. But the real measure of change was in the stories that never made headlines. The young artists who now felt safe to be themselves, the executives who thought twice before exploiting talent, the industry that had slowly, painfully begun to heal. Danielle's career had exploded beyond anything she'd imagined. 3 Grammy wins, 2 platinum albums, sold-out tours across the globe. But her proudest achievement was the program she'd started for young artists from underserved communities. Every time I see one of our kids get a record deal or a scholarship, she told Marcus during an interview, I remember why we fought so hard. Marcus had become her full-time producer and business partner. Their relationship had evolved from professional to personal, built on a foundation of shared struggle and mutual respect. Speaking of fighting, Marcus said with a grin, "Did you see the news about Cody?" Cody Hart had disappeared from public life after the congressional hearing. His assets had been seized to pay legal settlements. His music had been removed from streaming platforms. He was working at a car dealership in suburban Tennessee, a fallen star whose name was now synonymous with exploitation and racism. I almost feel sorry for him, Danielle admitted. Almost. Don't. He made his choices. The real victory had come 6 months earlier when Tyler Martinez, now a college senior studying music business, had called with news that made Danielle cry tears of joy. MS. Carter, I got the internship at your foundation. I'm going to be working with young artists just like you worked with me. The circle was complete. The teenager who'd uploaded her video was now helping the next generation of artists find their voices. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Danielle returned to Charlotte for a concert, this time as the headliner. The same venue where she'd been set up to fail was now sold out to see her triumph. Before the show, she stood on the exact spot where her life had changed forever. "You know what the funny thing is?" she said to Marcus. "They thought they were humiliating me, but they actually gave me the biggest gift of my life. How do you figure? They forced me to find my real voice. Not the voice I thought people wanted to hear, but the voice that was always inside me. The voice that refuses to be silenced." As she walked onto the stage that night, the crowd's roar was deafening. But this time, it wasn't for a backup singer who'd been thrown into the spotlight. It was for a woman who'd taken that spotlight and made it her own. The performance was magical, but more than that, it was healing. For her, for the industry, for everyone who'd ever been told they didn't belong. After the show, a young black girl approached her at the meet and greet. "Ms. Carter, I want to be a singer just like you." Danielle knelt down to the girl's level. "Then sing, baby. Sing loud, sing proud, and never let anyone tell you that you don't belong." The girl smiled. "I won't." And Danielle knew the future of music was in good hands. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Like and subscribe if this story inspired you, and tell us in the comments, what's your dream that you're ready to fight for? Remember, your voice matters, and the world needs to hear it.